On the sprawling Meadowbrook Ranch in Montana, something extraordinary was about to unfold that would challenge everything people thought they knew about animals and their capacity for love. Jasper, a massive Angus bull who had lost his sight in a lightning strike 3 years earlier, stood protectively over two orphaned foals in the far pasture. His gentle nature a stark contrast to the fierce reputation bulls typically carried. Ranch owner Rebecca Martinez had never seen anything like it in her 25 years of running Meadowbrook Ranch. When the two Arabian foals, barely a week old, had been found abandoned after their mother died from complications during a difficult birth, Rebecca assumed they would need to be bottle-fed and raised in the barn under constant human supervision. But Jasper had other plans. "I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw him that first morning," Rebecca told her ranch foreman, Carlos Valdez, as they watched the unusual trio from the fence line. "Jasper was standing over those babies like he was their own father, and they were huddled against his legs like he was the most natural thing in the world." Jasper's blindness, which had initially seemed like a devastating disability, had actually heightened his other senses in remarkable ways. He could detect the slightest sounds of distress, locate the foals by their scent and breathing patterns, and somehow navigate the pasture with an accuracy that amazed everyone who witnessed it. The foals, whom Rebecca had named Stella and Scout, seemed to understand instinctively that their massive protector couldn't see them, so they stayed close and made small, nickering sounds to let him know where they were. Dr. Amanda Foster, the ranch's veterinarian, was fascinated by the unlikely family dynamic that had developed. "Bulls are typically solitary animals, especially around young horses," she explained during one of her weekly visits. "But Jasper seems to have developed paternal instincts that override every natural behavior pattern we'd expect from his species. It's absolutely unprecedented." The first few weeks were critical for the orphaned foals, who needed constant care and nutrition to survive without their mother. Rebecca had prepared to hand-feed them every few hours, but she discovered that Jasper had somehow learned to guide the babies to the supplemental feeding stations she had set up around the pasture. He would gently nudge them with his massive head, leading them to food and water with remarkable precision despite his inability to see. What made Jasper's care even more extraordinary was his ability to sense when the foals were in distress or danger. One morning, Rebecca arrived to find Jasper positioning himself between the foals and a coyote that had wandered into the pasture during the night. The bull's protective stance and low warning rumbles had kept the predator at bay until Rebecca could arrive with Carlos to safely remove the threat. "It's like he can see through his heart instead of his eyes," Rebecca observed to her sister Maria during one of their weekly phone calls. "Jasper knows exactly where those babies are every moment of every day, and he responds to their needs faster than I could, even if I was watching them constantly." The foals, for their part, seemed to understand that Jasper was different from other animals on the ranch. They stayed within a few feet of him at all times, made frequent vocalizations to communicate their location, and even learned to guide him around obstacles by walking slightly ahead and to his sides. It was as if they had become his eyes while he became their protector. Local ranchers and horse breeders began visiting Meadowbrook Ranch to witness the remarkable family for themselves. Many arrived skeptical, having never heard of such an unusual interspecies relationship, but all left amazed by the gentle care and obvious love between the blind bull and his adopted foals. "I've been raising cattle and horses for 40 years, said neighboring rancher Tom Bradley, "and I've never seen anything that comes close to what Jasper is doing with those babies. It defies everything we think we know about animal behavior and instincts." As Stella and Scout grew stronger and more independent during their first month of life, their bond with Jasper only deepened. They would sleep curled up against his warm sides at night, and during the day they would graze nearby while he kept careful watch over them through sound and scent. The sight of the massive black bull surrounded by two delicate, light-colored foals became the most photographed scene on the ranch. But as the weeks passed, Rebecca began to wonder what would happen as the foals matured and developed their natural horse instincts. Would they eventually outgrow their need for Jasper's protection, or had something deeper been established between them that would last throughout their lives? What challenges will arise as Stella and Scout grow bigger and more independent? And how will their unique upbringing with a blind bull shaped their development into adult horses. As spring turned to summer on Meadowbrook Ranch, Stella and Scout had grown from fragile newborns into spirited young foals, but their devotion to Jasper remained unwavering. Now 3 months old, they had developed personalities as distinct as their appearances. Stella was bold and curious with a coat that gleamed like polished silver, while Scout was more cautious and thoughtful, his dark bay coloring making him blend into shadows. Rebecca Martinez watched their daily routines with growing amazement. Each morning, the foals would wake up pressed against Jasper's sides, then spend several minutes nuzzling and greeting their adoptive father before beginning their day. Jasper, in turn, would perform what could only be described as a morning inspection, using his sensitive nose to check each foal thoroughly for any signs of injury or illness. The level of communication between them is extraordinary, Dr. Foster observed during her weekly visit. Jasper has developed specific sounds for different situations. One rumble means to stay close, another means it's safe to explore, and a third means come back immediately. The foals understand every single one of these signals perfectly. The blind bull had also established a routine of teaching the young horses about their environment in ways that seemed almost human-like in their thoughtfulness. He would guide them to different areas of the pasture, allowing them to explore while keeping them within the safe boundaries he had somehow mapped out in his mind. When the thunderstorms approached, Jasper would lead them to the shelter before the first drops of rain fell. His ability to sense weather changes more accurate than most meteorologists. If this incredible story of love and protection touches your heart, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us share more amazing stories like this one about the extraordinary bonds that can form between animals. Every subscription and like means the world to us and helps these heartwarming tales reach people who need to see that miracles happen every day in the most unexpected ways. Thank you for being part of our community that celebrates the incredible power of love and compassion. But as the foals grew larger and more confident, new challenges began to emerge. Other horses on the ranch started showing interest in the young pair, particularly the lead mare, Rosalind, who seemed concerned that the foals weren't learning a proper horse behavior. She would approach the fence line and call to Stella and Scout with urgent whinnies, trying to encourage them to join the main herd. Rosalind's maternal instincts are kicking in, Rebecca explained to Carlos as they watched the mare's increasingly persistent attempts to attract the foal's attention. She knows they need to learn how to be horses, not just Jasper's protected babies. The situation came to a head one afternoon when Rosalind managed to open the gate latch with her teeth, a skill she had never demonstrated before. She entered Jasper's pasture with determination, clearly intending to take the foals back to the herd where she believed they belonged. Jasper immediately sensed the intrusion and positioned himself between Rosalind and his adopted children. The confrontation that followed was unlike anything anyone at Meadowbrook Ranch had ever witnessed. Instead of the aggressive behavior typically expected from a bull protecting his territory, Jasper simply stood his ground calmly while making soft, almost pleading sounds toward Rosalind. Stella and Scout, caught between their adoptive father and the lead mare, seemed confused and distressed. They moved back and forth between the two adult animals, whinnying softly as if trying to communicate that they loved them both, but didn't understand why they had to choose. The standoff lasted for nearly an hour, with Rebecca and Carlos ready to intervene if necessary, but then something remarkable happened. Rosalind, as if suddenly understanding the depth of the bond between Jasper and the foals, stepped back and lowered her head in what appeared to be a gesture of respect or acknowledgement. From that day forward, Rosalind began making regular visits to Jasper's pasture, not to take the foals away, but to spend time with the unusual family. She seemed to recognize that while she could teach Stella and Scout important horse behaviors and social skills, Jasper provided them with something equally valuable: unconditional protection, patience, and a kind of love that transcended species boundaries. Dr. Foster documented these interactions with growing excitement. What we're witnessing here could revolutionize our understanding of animal cognition and emotional intelligence, she told Rebecca. Jasper isn't just caring for these foals, he's actively parenting them, and Rosalind has somehow recognized and accepted his role in their development. As summer progressed, The arrangement evolved into something even more extraordinary. Rosalind would visit for several hours each day, teaching the foals to run, play, and interact with other horses, while Jasper continued to provide their primary care, security, and emotional support. The foals began to display characteristics of both species, the strength and steadiness they learned from Jasper, combined with the grace and agility natural to their horse heritage. The most remarkable development was how Stella and Scout began to serve as intermediaries between different animal groups on the ranch. They seemed to understand both horse and cattle behavior instinctively, and other animals appeared to trust them in ways that surprised everyone who observed their interactions. How will this unique upbringing continue to shape Stella and Scout as they approach their first year of life? And what unexpected roles will they begin to play in the ranch community? By their first birthday, Stella and Scout had grown into magnificent yearlings. But their most remarkable characteristic wasn't their physical beauty. It was their unprecedented ability to communicate and mediate between different animal species on Meadowbrook Ranch. Under Jasper's patient guidance and Rosalind's horse training, they had developed skills that amazed animal behaviorists who traveled from universities across the country to study them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a professor of animal cognition from Colorado State University, had been observing the ranch for 3 months and was documenting behaviors she had never seen before in her 20-year career. Stella and Scout have become what I can only describe as interspecies ambassadors, she explained to Rebecca during her latest visit. They understand the communication patterns, social hierarchies, and emotional needs of multiple animal species and actively work to bridge gaps between them. The first major demonstration of their unique abilities occurred during a tense situation involving the ranch's flock of sheep and a new group of cattle that Rebecca had recently purchased. The cattle, unfamiliar with the ranch's layout and social dynamics, had been aggressive toward the sheep, preventing them from accessing their preferred grazing areas and creating dangerous stampede situations. Traditional ranch management would have required separating the animals with additional fencing, but Stella and Scout intervened in a way that left everyone speechless. Working together with an almost telepathic coordination, they positioned themselves between the cattle and sheep, using different body language and vocalizations to communicate with each group. To the cattle, they demonstrated the calm, steady presence they had learned from Jasper, moving slowly and making low, soothing sounds that seemed to relax the agitated animals. With the sheep, they used quicker, lighter movements similar to herding techniques, but with a gentleness that encouraged cooperation rather than fear. It was like watching diplomats negotiate a peace treaty, Carlos told his wife that evening. Those yearlings somehow convinced two groups of animals who had been fighting for weeks to share the same space peacefully. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of ranch work. Jasper, despite his blindness, seemed to sense exactly what his adopted children were doing and positioned himself as a backup presence, ready to intervene if needed, but trusting them to handle the situation with the skills he had taught them. His confidence in their abilities was evident to everyone who observed the family dynamic. The success with the cattle and sheep was just the beginning. Over the following months, Stella and Scout began resolving conflicts throughout the ranch community. When the barn cats were having territorial disputes with a family of raccoons, the yearlings somehow facilitated a sharing arrangement for the feed storage area. When Rosalind's daughter, a young mare named Melody, was being bullied by older horses, Stella and Scout intervened to establish a protective alliance that allowed her to integrate safely into the herd. Rebecca found herself relying on the yearlings to help with ranch management in ways she had never imagined possible. "They've become my co-managers," she joked to Dr. Rodriguez, though there was truth in her statement. "When I have a problem with animal behavior or group dynamics, I can actually ask Stella and Scout to help, and they somehow understand what needs to be done." The most remarkable incident occurred when a neighboring ranch experienced a crisis with their prize-breeding stallion, Phoenix, who had become dangerously aggressive after being injured in an accident. The stallion's owner, Margaret Sullivan, had exhausted all traditional training methods and was considering having to put Phoenix down as he posed a threat to everyone who approached him. Rebecca offered to bring Stella and Scout to Sullivan's ranch to see if they could help. Many people thought it was too dangerous to expose yearlings to such an aggressive animal, but Jasper's calm presence and the young horse's proven abilities convinced Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Foster to support the attempt. The intervention was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. Stella and Scout approached Phoenix with the same patient, non-threatening presence they had learned from Jasper, but they also demonstrated an understanding of the stallion's pain and fear that went beyond normal horse empathy. They spent hours simply standing near Phoenix, allowing him to gradually become comfortable with their presence, while making soft sounds that seemed to calm his agitation. By the end of the day, Phoenix was allowing the yearlings to touch his injured leg and was showing the first signs of trust he had displayed since his accident. Within a week of daily visits, the stallion had made enough progress that Margaret's veterinarian was able to provide proper medical treatment and begin rehabilitation. Those two young horses saved Phoenix's life, Margaret told Rebecca with tears in her eyes. But more than that, they gave him back his faith and companionship. I don't understand how they knew exactly what he needed, but somehow they did. Word of Stella and Scout's extraordinary abilities began spreading throughout the ranching community and beyond. Animal rescue organizations, therapeutic riding programs, and veterinary colleges started requesting their help with difficult cases involving traumatized or behaviorally challenged animals. But as their reputation grew and demands for their services increased, Rebecca faced a difficult decision about whether to allow her beloved yearlings to leave Meadowbrook Ranch to help animals in need, potentially risking their own well-being and their precious relationship with Jasper. What decision will Rebecca make about sharing Stella and Scout's gift with the world? And how will their growing fame affect their bond with the blind bull who raised them? 2 years after Stella and Scout's remarkable intervention with Phoenix, Meadowbrook Ranch had been transformed into something unprecedented in the agricultural world. A therapeutic center where troubled animals from across the country came to heal under the gentle guidance of the two horses and their blind bull father. Rebecca's decision to share their gift had created a new model for animal rehabilitation that was revolutionizing the field. The Meadowbrook Animal Healing Center, as it was now officially known, operated on the principle that animals could help other animals heal in ways that human intervention alone could never achieve. Stella and Scout, now mature 3-year-olds, had refined their therapeutic abilities to an art form, while Jasper continued to serve as their anchor and guide, providing the calm, steady presence that made all their work possible. Dr. Rodriguez had documented over 50 successful cases of animal rehabilitation at the center, ranging from horses with severe behavioral problems to cattle suffering from trauma-induced aggression. The success rate was unprecedented, with over 90% of animals showing significant improvement within the first month of treatment. What Stella and Scout provide is something we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Rodriguez explained to a gathering of veterinary professionals from around the world who had come to study their methods. They offer a form of emotional healing that transcends species barriers. Animals trust them in ways they can't trust humans because Stella and Scout communicate in the universal language of genuine empathy and understanding. The center's most challenging case arrived on a cold February morning when a truck pulled up carrying Luna, a magnificent Arabian mare who had been so severely abused that she couldn't tolerate any human contact and had injured several people who tried to approach her. Her owner, a rescue organization from Texas, had heard about Meadowbrook's success stories and was making a last-ditch effort to save Luna from having to be euthanized. "She's beautiful, but she's completely broken," explained Sarah Chen, the rescue director, as they watched Luna pace frantically in the specially designed quarantine paddock. "We've tried everything. The best trainers, medication, isolation therapy. Nothing has worked. She's been like this for over a year since we rescued her from a situation I won't even describe." Rebecca studied Luna's behavior and recognized the deep trauma that had shattered the mare's ability to trust. But she also saw something else, a spark of intelligence and spirit that hadn't been completely extinguished. "Let's see what Stella and Scout think," she said quietly. The initial introduction was carefully orchestrated with safety barriers in place. Stella and Scout approached Luna's paddock with Jasper following behind, his steady presence providing reassurance to his adopted children as they faced their most challenging case yet. Luna's reaction was immediate and violent. She reared, struck the fence, and made threatening charges toward the three animals who were trying to help her. But Stella and Scout didn't retreat. Instead, they positioned themselves just outside her reach and began what could only be described as a patience vigil. For 3 days, the pair took turns staying near Luna's paddock, never trying to force interaction, but simply being present. They would graze peacefully nearby, occasionally making soft sounds that conveyed no threat or demand, just acknowledgement of her presence and pain. Jasper's role in Luna's healing proved to be crucial in an unexpected way. His blindness meant that he couldn't see Luna's aggressive displays, so he remained completely calm and unintimidated by her threats. His peaceful energy seemed to have a profound effect on the traumatized mare, who gradually began to realize that he posed no danger to her. The breakthrough came on the fourth day when Luna, exhausted from maintaining her defensive posture, finally lay down near the fence where Stella was grazing. Scout immediately joined his sister, and the three animals simply rested in comfortable silence, with Jasper standing guard nearby. It was the first time we'd seen Luna relax since she arrived at our rescue, Sarah Chen later wrote in her report. Watching those two young horses and their bull father create a safe space for her without demanding anything in return was unlike anything I'd ever witnessed in animal rehabilitation. Over the following weeks, Luna's transformation was gradual but undeniable. She began allowing Stella and Scout to share her space, then eventually to touch her gently. The three horses would spend hours together, with Stella and Scout somehow communicating to Luna that she was safe and valued. The most remarkable moment came when Luna, for the first time since her rescue, approached Jasper voluntarily. The blind bull, sensing her presence, remained perfectly still as she gently touched her nose to his massive shoulder. In that moment, everyone watching understood that Luna had finally learned to trust again. By the end of her 2-month stay at Meadowbrook, Luna had been completely transformed. She was calm around humans, responsive to gentle handling, and had developed such a strong bond with Stella and Scout that leaving them was emotionally difficult for all three horses. Luna's case proved that no animal is beyond hope, Rebecca reflected as they prepared the mare for her return to Texas, where she would be placed with a family experienced in caring for formerly traumatized horses. Stella and Scout didn't just heal her behavioral problems. They helped her remember how to be a horse again, how to trust, and how to love. As word of Luna's recovery spread, requests for help began pouring in from around the world. Rebecca realized that Stella and Scout's gift was too important to keep confined to one ranch, but she also knew that their work was only possible because of their unbreakable bond with Jasper and the safe environment he provided. How will Rebecca expand the reach of their healing program while preserving the family dynamic that makes their work possible? And what lasting legacy will this unlikely family create? 5 years had passed since Jasper first took 2 orphaned foals under his protection, and Meadowbrook Ranch had become the most renowned animal rehabilitation center in North America. But the true measure of their success wasn't found in awards or recognition. It was in the hundreds of animals whose lives had been transformed and the revolutionary understanding of interspecies healing that Stella, Scout, and Jasper had pioneered. Now 8 years old, Jasper moved more slowly than before, his age beginning to show despite his continued alertness and dedication to his family. Stella and Scout, at 5 years old, had reached the peak of their abilities as healers and teachers, but they had never forgotten the lessons of patience, empathy, and unconditional love that their blind father had taught them. Rebecca had made the difficult but wise decision to expand their program through education rather than travel. The Jasper Method, as it had come to be known, was now being taught at veterinary schools and animal therapy programs worldwide. Rather than sending Stella and Scout away from their home, Rebecca brought students and professionals to Meadowbrook to learn directly from the source. Dr. Michael Thompson, who had recently completed his doctorate in animal psychology, studying under Dr. Rodriguez at the ranch, was documenting the long-term impacts of the program. What we've learned here has fundamentally changed how we approach animal trauma and rehabilitation, he explained to a group of international visitors. The key insight is that animals often heal best when they're helping others heal. Stella and Scout's therapeutic abilities grew stronger as they used them to help other animals. The center now operated a unique mentorship program where animals who had been successfully rehabilitated returned to help with new cases. Luna, the traumatized Arabian mare, who had been one of their most challenging successes, now served as a permanent resident and co-therapist. working alongside Stella and Scout to help newly arrived animals learn to trust again. Luna's transformation from patient to healer represents everything this program stands for, Rebecca observed as she watched the now confident mare gently approach a frightened young stallion who had just arrived from an abusive situation. She remembers what it felt like to be broken, and that memory allows her to connect with other traumatized animals in profound ways. The program's success had attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Military organizations began sending working dogs suffering from PTSD to Meadowbrook, where Stella and Scout's calming presence helped the canine veterans overcome anxiety and aggression. Zoos consulted with the center about helping animals adapt to new environments or overcome behavioral problems. But perhaps the most significant development was the discovery that animals trained at Meadowbrook carried their therapeutic abilities with them when they left. Horses who had been rehabilitated at the center often became exceptional therapy animals at their new homes, seemingly able to transfer the healing methods they had learned from Stella and Scout to other animals they encountered. It's like a ripple effect, Dr. Rodriguez noted in her final research paper before retiring. The healing doesn't stop when animals leave Meadowbrook. They become healers themselves, spreading these methods wherever they go. Jasper's legacy isn't just the animals he directly influenced, but generations of animals who learned that love and patience can overcome any trauma. As Jasper's health began to decline in his 9th year, Stella and Scout seemed to understand that their time with their adoptive father was precious. They spent more time close to him, often seen grazing on either side of the gentle giant, or resting against his warm sides just as they had as newborn foals. The ranch staff and regular visitors noticed that Jasper's presence continued to be essential for the most difficult cases. Even animals that responded well to Stella and Scout's intervention seemed to need the bull's steady, unconditional acceptance to complete their healing journey. On a peaceful autumn morning, as golden light filtered through the Montana sky, Jasper passed away quietly in his sleep, surrounded by Stella, Scout, and Luna. The 3 horses had kept vigil over him through his final night, as if returning the gift of protection he had given them throughout their lives. The ranch fell silent that day, but in the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Stella and Scout, rather than being devastated by their loss, seemed to understand that they now carried the responsibility of continuing Jasper's work. They began displaying even greater patience and wisdom with the animals who came to them for healing, as if their father's spirit lived on through their actions. Jasper taught us that love isn't limited by species, site, or circumstance, Rebecca said during the memorial service attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the unlikely family. He showed us that the greatest strength comes from protecting and nurturing others, especially those who are different or wounded. His legacy lives on in every animal that learns to trust again, every person who witnesses the power of unconditional love, and every heart that opens to the possibility that healing can come from the most unexpected places. Today, a bronze statue of Jasper stands in the center of Meadowbrook Ranch, with Stella and Scout often seen grazing peacefully nearby. The inscription reads simply, "To Jasper, who proved that love sees with the heart." The Meadowbrook Animal Healing Center continues to transform lives, guided by the principles of patience, empathy, and unconditional acceptance that a blind bull taught 2 orphaned foals and, through them, the world. How do you think Jasper's legacy of love and healing will continue to influence animal rehabilitation and our understanding of the bonds that transcend all boundaries?